Are we ready? Okay. At the sight of the crowds, his heart was moved with pity for them, because they were troubled and abandoned, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is abundant, but the laborers are few. So ask the master of the harvest to send out laborers for his harvest." The Gospel of the Lord. In today's Gospel, we're confronted with that all too familiar line, that the harvest is abundant, but the laborers are few. A line that probably makes us think of the need to promote vocations, especially to the priesthood. But we can focus too much on that. Today we're confronted with a story that once again shows us the need to pattern our lives after the life of Jesus. In those words that we just heard, Jesus saw a great need, a need so great that it moved his heart with pity. Now, if we're being honest with ourselves, we have to admit that we're kind of in a better place than Jesus was at his time. We can see the needs of the entire world right from our living room couch. Jesus had to be out with the people, seeing the needs of a specific group, one at a time. Whether it's through watching TV or surfing the internet on social media, we're constantly confronted with images that show us needs in our own communities and all over the world. It only takes a couple of notes of that song, "In the Arms of an Angel," to make us realize that we're listening to one of those sad dog commercials. It shows us the real problem and presence of animal abuse and the need to help those animals who have been harmed. Oftentimes we're shown images of children from faraway places that don't have the resources that we do, places with no abundance of food or water, places that don't even have medicine. We see the need to feed them, to educate them. We see the need to give a seemingly minuscule gift of 30 cents a day, a gift that, if they don't have it, could cause them to not even survive. When a natural disaster strikes some part of the world, within minutes, images of it are on our screens, right in front of our faces. We're able to see the destruction brought about by nature. We're able to see how people's lives have been torn apart by wind and by water. It's so easy for us to see the needs of the world right within the comfort of our own homes. But here, it's also easy for us to see a difference between ourselves and Jesus. You see, Jesus saw a great need, but it was a need that moved his heart. He wasn't able to hit the mute button on his television remote. He couldn't change the channel. He couldn't scroll to a different part of his news feed. He was in the midst of the animals needing care. He was with the children who need food and medicine, and he was right beside the people who just lost everything to the powers of nature. He couldn't ignore it. But how often do we? How often do we see great needs not only on our screens, but on our streets and in our neighborhoods, even within our own community here, and walk away? How much sitting on our couches and flipping past the needs presented to us has hardened our hearts and blinded our eyes to the needs right in front of our faces? Today, we're presented with a reminder to pattern ourselves after the person of Jesus, a man who saw great needs and allowed himself to be moved. After Jesus saw that great need before him, we're told that he came to an important realization, the realization that he couldn't do this alone. He couldn't address those needs without a team. Oftentimes, it takes many hands to make great and amazing things happen. Just this past weekend, the world, or at least Kentucky, tuned in their televisions and radio stations to watch what's been called the most exciting 2 minutes in sports, the Kentucky Derby. Now, for us Kentuckians, Derby Day is a very important part of our culture that people from other states often don't quite understand. There's a lot to go into it. Most of us actually don't go to the track, but the first Saturday in May is not complete without either hosting or going to a Derby party. It's an unspoken rule that women must don the biggest and brightest hats that they can find. And then, of course, there's most people's favorite part, bourbon. The first Saturday in May means that Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey is going to be enjoyed by people at the track, throughout Kentucky, and really throughout the world. Now, This homily is not turning into an advertisement for bourbon, and I'm certainly not encouraging anyone to drink. But bourbon, like the Derby, is an important part of the culture and the economy of central Kentucky. To produce a bottle of bourbon, a huge team is required. First, there's the men and the women that go out into the forests and cut down the white oak trees. And then there's the other who replant the trees that have been lost. The coopers turn wood into a barrel and char the inside of it to the perfect char. Farmers throughout Kentucky and beyond grow the corn, the barley, and the wheat that's put on trucks and shipped to our different distilleries. There's people that inspect the grain to make sure it's the right quality. There's teams of people that mix the grains to the right proportions and begin the distilling process. There are people who fill the barrels and get them to the warehouses. Teams of men rotate the 500-pound barrels throughout the warehouse over the course of years. People pull bourbon to make sure that it has the right flavor before it goes into bottling. Even artists are charged to come up with new and innovative ways to advertise the product. The list could go on and on. For us Kentuckians, bourbon is a great thing, not because of what it is, but because of what it does. It creates jobs for countless people. It bolsters the economy of central Kentucky. It provides us a way of showing off what the Commonwealth is all about. It's a great thing, but it takes a team of people to make it happen. And just as it takes a team to bring bourbon from grain fields to bottling, Jesus knew it was going to take a team to address the needs in front of him, to spread his message, to drive out demons, to cure diseases, to make amazing things happen. I hope that in hearing those names called out today, we hear our own name being called out by Christ, to be part of his team, to make amazing things happen. Now that he's got his team, Jesus moves on to send them out on a mission. After all, a team just can't sit and do nothing. The same is true with us, but oftentimes we screw it up. As Catholics, and I include myself here, we fail to recognize that in asking us to be a part of his team, Jesus is sending us out on a mission as well. Each and every Sunday at the end of Mass, we hear a priest or a deacon telling us to get out, telling us to leave the church building, to go out into the world and carry Christ's message to our homes, our communities, and every person that we meet. So often we hear, "Go in peace, glorifying the Lord by your lives." But we think, thanks be to God, that's over. Now let's get to the parking lot before someone else does. But that's not what we're being told. We're being told that this hour we've spent together worshiping God, hearing his word proclaimed, and receiving his word in the Eucharist can't be it. If all we do is come to these walls each Sunday and sit for an hour, but nothing about our lives changes, nothing about us is transformed by what happens here, then what's the point? Every Sunday, we are sent out on a mission, invited to be part of a team led by Christ himself, to address the needs around us, just as he did. We're invited to have our hearts moved with pity. Jesus sent his apostles on a mission to spread his message, to cure the sick, to raise the dead, to cleanse lepers, and to drive out demons. When we hear the dismissal at the end of Mass, it's our invitation to seek out and to cure the spiritually sick, the spiritually dead, people who are afflicted with things that make them outcasts to our society, and even to talk to people and journey with people who are fighting demons of addiction to gambling or alcohol or drugs or whatever it may be. Today we hear that Jesus saw great needs and that his heart was moved with pity. We heard him assemble a team that was needed to do amazing things, and we saw them sent out on a mission. Today, each and every single one of us in this room are invited to realize that God has a mission for us, that there are needs right in front of our faces that he wants us to see and be moved by, that he is inviting us and us personally to be a part of his team, to realize the mission that he has made for us, one that no one else is able to accomplish in the same way. May we have eyes and hearts open to see that invitation.